Hello and welcome. Tonight, gunmen attack Ungwan Wakili village in Zangon Kataf, Kaduna, killing at least 17 persons and leaving 3 others injured. Families of 10 abducted persons from Chikakore community in the Federal Capital Territory continue to grieve over their loved ones as police say they are on the trail of the gunmen. Arewa Consultative Forum accuses President Muhammadu Buhari of disobedience to the ruling of the Supreme Court on the old Naira notes, saying it could damage his credentials as a Democrat. And hundreds of thousands of Israelis take to the streets to protest planned reform by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to overhaul the country's judicial system in one of the country's biggest ever protests. We begin with security, and at least 17 people have been killed while 3 others sustained injuries after gunmen attacked Ungwan Wakili village in Zangon Kataf local government area of Kaduna State. The executive chairman of Zangon Kataf local government area, Francis Sani, who confirmed the attack to Channels Television, said the gunmen suspected to be militia herders invaded the community at late on Saturday night and started shooting sporadically on people's houses. The chairman disclosed that 17 locals, mostly women and children, were killed in the process, either from gunshots or machete cuts. He further explains that the gunmen operated for some hours without any resistance from security operatives, despite being located close to a mobile police checkpoint. According to the local government chairman, those who sustained injuries have been taken to the hospital for treatment, while the remains of the victims will be given a mass burial after normalcy has been restored. Meanwhile, police authorities in the state have vowed to arrest and bring to justice the masterminds of the deadly attack. A spokesman of the Kaduna State Police Command in a statement explains that the timely intervention of a joint security personnel coordinated by the area commander prevented the gunmen from unleashing more attacks on the community. The Zangon Kataf Local Administration Council has imposed a 24-hour curfew on Ungwan Juju, Mabuhu, Ungwan Wakili and Zangon Urban with immediate effect to allow men of the Nigerian Army restore peace in the area. Staying with security, 6 persons who were injured during the recent attack at the APC rally in Duguri are still receiving treatment at the Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Teaching Hospital, and some of them are with bullet wounds. The state governor, that's the Bauchi State Governor, Bala Mohammed, has paid a visit to the victims and assured them that measures are being taken to arrest the perpetrators.
They are all stabilizing and they are well attended at the teaching hospital here. There are some procedures to be carried out, medical procedures, and the machines are not working very well. We have installed some of the best diagnostic materials or machines at our specialist hospital, and they are going to go there for that. They may not have the facilities here. And so we thank God we have encouraged them. Our medical team are looking after them, and of course they are all stabilizing, except one that is serious that had an operation. So we just came to encourage them and to show them sympathy and empathy.
In the Federal Capital Territory, families are still grieving over the abduction of their loved ones by gunmen in Chikakore community in Buhari Area Council of the FCT. The police say at least 10 persons have been abducted following an attack by gunmen in a group in Grow Homes Estate following the attack, or that's located in the area. The incident, which happened late night on Friday, has thrown the community into shock as they now appeal for adequate security presence. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, tells us more.
This is one of the apartments attacked by gunmen in Grow Homes Estate, located in Chikakore community in the Kubwa axis of Buhari Area Council of the Federal Capital Territory. The signs of the security breach here are still much visible as families grieve over the abduction of their loved ones. In this home, 5 family members were initially abducted by the gunmen. The mother and her youngest child were released almost immediately. However, the father and 2 children are still in captivity.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
A neighbor to the affected family narrates what happened on the night of the attack as he asks that his identity be concealed.
About a few minutes, at 11:15, he called me that armed robbers were in the estate. I say, armed robbers? Is it not too early? Immediately, I called the security gate. They abducted everybody in the house, even the opposite. Their own, they were all going. There's this place, the place they broke through the railway fence and our fence. That's where they took them through a dish and they marched them into the bush.
These two private security personnel engaged by residents of the estate also give their own version of what happened.
We never experienced that there are many. There are over 20. So they now begin to open fire to us. So we couldn't have much ammunition to face them.
We try our best. We stop them entering the second phase of the estate, that is fence 3. From there, as police come, we share ourselves 2 groups. One group down, another group they up. Then we tackle them. Then before we reach them, they just move out with the people.
Confirming the incident to Channel Television, the police public relations officer, Mrs. Josephine Ade, in a statement says 10 people have been abducted and that operatives are on the trail of the gunmen. The abductors are yet to make demands for ransom, as the community, now thrown into shock and fear of the unknown, seeks urgent security presence to forestall a recurrence. It took the gunmen more than 1 hour operating in this community, and after successfully abducting their victims, they got to this point where they had to break down this wall. You can see evidence of the broken blocks still on the ground. Now, they took their victims, 10 of them according to the police, and went down that ditch. Women, men, and children were forced to go through that place and then through that entrance. No word has been heard from these victims yet. The police said that they have already deployed their men to go after the assailants. From Chikakore community here in Kubwa area of the Federal Capital Territory, Empress Simon, Channels Television News.
There's less than a week to the governorship and state assembly elections across the country. A group which goes by the name Southeast South-South Professionals in Nigeria is calling on the authorities to check the profiling of its members in different parts of the country. Speaking at a media briefing today, the group's president, Hannibal Owaifo, says after the presidential and national assembly elections, some of its members have come under attack and profiling, especially in Rivers and Lagos states. Well, the group is therefore calling on the relevant agencies to ensure the safety of all Nigerians that will be taking part in the remaining elections, while asking the Independent National Electoral Commission to correct some of the lapses noted during the presidential and National Assembly polls.
In view of what happened during the presidential election, the Southeast South Professionals of Nigeria believes that there were a lot of irregularities in the presidential election which must be checked and corrected. We condemn the targeted attacks on non-Indians in Lagos State and opposition leaders and followers in Rivers State and all other forms of intimidation witnessed across the country. The continued attacks and open threats still being made in Lagos State towards non-Indians is very concerning, and we call on government of the Federation and Lagos State to step in and arrest these primitive attacks before it snowballs into a worse situation than what we already have on ground. We call on our people and all women Nigerians not to be intimidated by these rude, primitive, ignorant threats. We enjoin them to once again come out in their numbers on the 18th of March 2023 to vote for the servants, those who are contesting, to vote for people of their own choice. Our struggle ends where we bring in responsible people to govern us. We call on the Independent National Electoral Commission to apply the electoral laws to the letter during the forthcoming gubernatorial and State House of Assembly elections, and ensuring that Nigerians are not intentionally denied the rights to vote by disenfranchisement or through intimidation and other forms of malpractices.
Security agents tasked with compliance to movement restrictions should allow for people to move around and locate their polling units in order to vote. That's the view of the All Progressives Congress governorship candidate in Cross River State, Senator Basi Otu. He told Channels Television's Ladi Akeredoluwale on our election issues and personalities tracking program Roadmap 2023 that while ensuring security is important, getting appropriate voter turnout is equally important. Senator Otu says the one-week postponement to the governorship and state assembly elections provide INEC with the opportunity to work on removing the glitches noticed in the presidential poll of February the 25th.
I think it must have had. My belief that actually the security blockers were necessary to ensure that there's peace. But I think the personnel that are mounting these roadblocks must some way tone down in terms of trying to make sure that people get to their location of voting. Because if you look at probably the PVC, and from there you know where a particular human being is going to, a particular citizen is going to vote, he should be allowed thoroughfare to be able to assess his area of voting so that he will be able to exercise his franchise. I want to also believe that probably because of the fear of the unknown, they were very, very still and still. But moving forward, somehow, their bosses, their commanders should be able to let them know that the actual or the real exercise will be affected if people are not allowed to go to their polling units or polling points. So I think this should be taken on board so that the different security personnel are put online to understand that the essence of the exercise is for people to go and vote, for people to go and exercise their franchise. But where you hold them at checkpoints and at times don't even allow them to go back, there's a little bit of a problem and a setback. I wouldn't know to what extent that must have affected the results of the election, but I believe that it's probably a problem that we can overcome. We should just bring it in these coming elections, and the numbers will definitely improve. So this is probably 1 week they've added. It's added bonus for us to even do some more work. And I believe that other parties will do the same. Because I've seen in Cross River State, no party has let go. Everybody is still in the field. I've been in the field since 6 a.m. And I think that with 1 week added, it's not going to be quite easy. But we should get there, definitely.
For the full interview with Senator Basi Otu, do watch Roadmap 2023 tomorrow, Monday, March 13th, right here on Channels Television. Meanwhile, the governorship candidate of the Labour Party in Cross River State, Mr. Osim Oga, says he's not in any alliance with any other political party ahead of the governorship election in the state, maintaining that he is still in the race. Mr. Oga, who doubles as the LP state chairman, asked his supporters to come out and cast their votes for the party on March the 18th. He was speaking in Calabar, the Cross River State capital.
As you are aware, a few days ago, the national chairman of Labour Party, Barrister Julius Abure, issued a statement calling on all Labour Party members and obedient family all over Nigeria to go and vote for Labour Party candidates at the governorship and State House of Assembly level. They should do that, knowing fully that a vote for Labour Party is a vote that will enable us also reclaim our mandate at the presidential level. So we are not in any alliance with any group. Rather, as a party that have shown capacity, that have shown competency, a party that is well loved and has received the endorsement of people all over the country and all over the world, including our state here in Cross River. We even expect that those people who are talking about we collapsing structure for them to even collapse structure for Labour Party, because this is the only party that accommodates Mama, Papa, and Pikin.
In part two, after the break, with the collection of certificates of return by members of the incoming 10th Assembly, our in-house data analyst Babajide Ogusowo will be looking at the composition of the 10th Assembly, as well as to what we can expect from next Saturday's governorship and state assembly elections. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television. A reminder of our main stories. Gunmen attack Ungwan Wakili village in Zangon Kataf, Kaduna, killing at least 17 persons and leaving 3 others injured. Families of 10 abducted persons from Chikakore community in the Federal Capital Territory continue to grieve over their loved ones as police say they are on the trail of the gunmen. Arewa Consultative Forum accuses President Muhammadu Buhari of disobedience to the ruling of the Supreme Court on the old naira notes, saying it could damage his credentials as a Democrat. And hundreds of thousands of Israelis take to the streets to protest planned reforms by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to overhaul the country's judicial system in one of the country's biggest ever protests. We're in Ogun State now, where the governorship candidate of the African Democratic Congress, the ADC, Mr. Olubiyi Otegbe, has returned to Yewa North and Imekwafon local government areas of the state with a message of positive change. Mr. Otegbe again appeals to residents to vote for the ADC, giving assurance that his administration will be committed to the development of Ogun State if elected into office.
For the second time, the campaign train of the governorship candidate of the African Democratic Congress, Mr. Olubiyi Otegbe, is touring political wards in Yewa North and Imekwafon local government areas of Ogun State, and former Governor Ibikola Mosun is at the vanguard of the candidate's campaign. The first port of call is Iboro, where the senator representing Ogun West received the team in his country home in Iboro in Yewa North local government area. The tour stops over in other wards in Yewa North, including the headquarters at Yetoro, before proceeding to Imekwafon local government area. The rally, which extends till evening, finally terminates in Ilara, the border community with the Republic of Benin. Former Governor Monson, as well as the ADC governorship candidate, in their separate remarks, asked the residents to cast their vote for the ADC to ensure the continuation of good programs and projects for the state.
By the grace of God, your governor, your son, your brother, we finish all of this. All you need to do is do your bit. And what is your bit? Vote for ADC. And the symbol is handshake.
The youth of Ilara Alagbe are special people, and traditionally, all their votes, they are being casted for Senator Ibikule Amosun, and they have all resolved that history will repeat itself, and we are sure that at the end of the day, when ADC carries the day, all the projects that have been abandoned, which Senator Ibikule Amosun started and is almost completed, but this present administration has abandoned, we will continue and finish it.
Apparently, members of the ADC in Ogun State appear to be optimistic of victory come Saturday.
The PDP governorship candidate in Taraba State, Lieutenant Colonel Agbu Kefes, has announced plans to improve the standard of education in order to make it free and compulsory for primary and secondary school students if elected as governor of the state. At the grand finale of his campaign in Wukari, the southern zone of the state, the governorship candidate says he will also mechanize agriculture and ensure that issues of insecurity is reduced to the barest in the state.
This is the grand finale of the PDP governorship campaign in Taraba State, holding in Wukari local government area of the state. Supporters here are drawn from the 5 local government areas of Usa, Ibi, Donga, Takum, and Yangtu Special Development Area of the state. The governorship candidate, Lieutenant Colonel Agbu Kefes, amazed by the array of supporters, enumerates his 5-point agenda, which includes making primary and secondary education free and compulsory, mechanize agriculture, improve healthcare delivery, youth empowerment, in addition to ensuring adequate security of lives and property.
I've planned to strengthen education, especially the area of primary and secondary education, to make it free and compulsory. I'm already making arrangements with experts to see how we can modify the environment to make it conducive, secure for our children.
The candidate also appeals to INEC to work on the observed errors encountered in the movement of registered voters to different polling units by enlisting them for proper identification of polling units.
The former governorship candidates who are with me here.
At a separate event, Mr. Kefas is endorsed by a forum of 2019 governorship candidates in Taraba State who say they are backing him because of his track records.
We are here to speak on who we think deserves to be the next governor of Taraba State. That Taraba State is abundantly blessed with everything that is required to guarantee good quality life for the citizens is not in doubt. The problem has always been with the quality of leadership. If we get the leadership question right, every other factor will fall into place, and our state will become a reference point in Nigeria.
As the governorship and state assembly elections fast approaches, the PDP appears optimistic that the crowd and endorsement will be translated to votes for victory in the forthcoming election in the state.
The president of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, says the perception that the Senate is a rubber stamp to President Muhammadu Buhari is false, arguing that the upper chamber did not agree to every demand of the president. Now, speaking in an interview with Channels Television, Senator Lawan says the 9th Senate had a cordial relationship with President Buhari, which he says largely benefited the country by the signing into law of crucial legislations. He says he is hopeful that the incoming 10th Assembly will continue to have a cordial relationship with the executive.
We have put the milestones now. If you come and you want to cause, maybe you think you should be fighting. We have tried that before. Did it work? Who benefited at the end of the day? They would wish to see a national assembly where everybody is fighting within the assembly and also between the assembly and the legislature. We refuse to do that. And we have everything to show for not fighting the way people thought we should be fighting. Tell me, which national assembly really worked on interventions, legislative interventions like we did, and what everything signed or assented to by Mr. President? Tell me. So the essence is ensure that there is stability, there is peace between the two arms of government, that there is mutual respect, but in the process.
All right, like a ship, the executive and National Assembly members make decisions that influence how well Nigeria sails. Well, the question tonight is how similar or different is the composition of Nigeria's next National Assembly. Babajide Ogusowo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is here to provide insights about the 10th National Assembly. It's great to have you again, Babajide.
Pleasure is all mine.
Great. And of course, we are looking at the National Assembly, the 10th National Assembly. Tell us, what is it going to look like? Let's start with the upper legislative chamber, the Senate.
So the first is 119 seats are in the Senate. Elections have been concluded in all these states, in all these seats, and all these states except 8. But before we go into the numbers, there's something that this election shows. And I'd like to explain that before we go into the exact numbers. For centuries, we've been told that whenever two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. One thing that came out in this election is, especially the National Assembly election, showed that two elephants fought, yet the grass became greener. I'll go into that and explain exactly how two elephants fought, yet the grass became greener in this election, define history. But first, let's look at what is going on in the 10th Assembly. And if we take a look at the results from the Independent National Electoral Commission, especially if we look at what happened in 2015, 2019, and 2023, we'll see significant insights. Let's start with the table on the left, APC. 2015, When this election happened in the North Central that has 19 senators, the APC had 13 senators in 2015 in the North Central. In 2019, on February 24th, a day before the election, there were 12 senators in the North Central out of 19 senators from the APC. Based on the results we have right now, there are only 10 senators from the APC in the North Central, and there's only one more state that is outstanding from the North Central. In other words, the performance of the APC in the North Central as compared to February 24 is worse. In the Northeast, 19 Senate seats available in the Northeast. In 2015, when this election happened, the APC had 13 Senate seats. On February 24, a day to the election, the APC had 14 seats in the Northeast. Based on the results we have from INEC, in the Northeast, the APC currently has 9 seats in the Northeast. The challenge is there's only one more seat available based on INEC's supplementary election in the Northeast. Again, in the Northeast, compared to February 24, the APC is in a worse position. What about the Northwest? In the Northwest, there are 21 Senate seats available in the Northwest. We are still expecting results based on supplementary elections that will be held in the Northwest. We're expecting 5 more results from the Northwest. However, we know that when this election happened in 2015, APC won 20 seats in the Northwest. A day, February 24, a day to this election, APC still had 17 seats. Right now, APC has only 8 seats, and there are only 5 more seats available for grabs in the Northeast. What is going on in the Southeast? 15 Senate seats. We see a significant improvement there. 0 seats in 2015. A day to this election, the APC had 3 seats. APC has doubled its presence in the Southeast. 6 seats out of the 15 available seats in the Southeast. And in the South-South, there are 18 Senate seats available in the South-South. In 2015, the APC had only 1 seat. A day to this election, the APC had 3 seats. Now the APC has 7 seats in the South-South, an improvement from where it was before this election. Let's look at what happened in the Southwest. 18 senators are in the Southwest. In 2015, when this election happened, the APC had 13. On February 24, a day to this election, the APC had 14 senators out of the 18 possible senators in the Southwest. Now, APC has all the senators in the Southwest apart from Osun State. So in summary, for the APC, when it comes to the Senate perspective, they've lost in 3 major zones: North Central, Northeast, and the Northwest, and they've grown their market presence, their market share in the Southeast, South-South, and the Southwest. What about the PDP? Senate, we see 6 Senate seats in the North Central a day to the election. This election, 7 Senate seats. We've seen a decline to 5. Same thing in the Northeast. APC started with 5. A day to this election, they had 2 seats. We've seen them improve, having more senators in the Northeast, 8 seats. Same thing in the Northwest. A day to this election, the PDP had 4 seats. Now they have 6 seats. And the Southeast is where we see a significant difference. Look at what has happened. In 2015, the PDP had 15 out of all 15 seats in the Southeast. A day to the election, the PDP had 9 out of the 15 seats in the Southeast. Right now, the PDP has only 1 Senate seat in all of the Southeast, and that's in Enugu State. Look at the South-South. In 2015, the PDP had 17 out of all the 18 Senate seats in the South-South. A day to this election, the PDP had 15 out of 18 seats in the South-South. Now the APC only has 10 out of 18 seats in the South-South. And in the Southwest, we see a bit of stability for the PDP. 5 seats when this election happened in 2015. A day to this election, in 2019, 4 seats. And a day to this election, 4 seats. Now we see 3 seats. 3 seats. So in all, if you look at that bottom column, the APC, 63 seats prior to this election. Now 55 seats. However, there are still 8 seats up for grabs. If the APC wins all the 8 seats, they get back to the position they were just before this election. What we see is the PDP 41 seats in the Senate before this election. Even if the PDP wins as well all the 8 seats, it'll be back to where it was before this election. So the summary is, at the upper chamber, we see the APC grow its strength in the southern region, while the PDP has grown its strength in the northern region.
But let's even talk about other political parties in the Senate, because I know, of course, there are some other parties making inroads into that. Do we have...
Yes, we have the facts. And if we jump to that third information where we look at why I talked about when two elephants fight, it's in Nigeria, the grass has grown greener even though two elephants are fighting. And if we take a look at that information, we will see the growth of other parties. And listen carefully to this, Ayo. In 2015, there were no other parties, apart from the APC and PDP, that had a senatorial seat. A day to this election, there were 5 parties that had senatorial seats when we went into this election. 5 parties had senatorial seats, 5 parties that were not the PDP or APC. Now, 13 senators are from these minority parties, compared to only 5. So the minority parties have more than doubled their performance in this election at the Senate. Now look at what's going on at the House of Reps. In 2015, there were only 8 other minority parties out of the 360 seats. A day to this election, the minorities had only 14 seats. And by minorities, again, we're talking about parties that are not APC, PDP. Now in the House of Reps, even though we are still expecting 13 supplementary elections, the minorities already have 62 seats. And so we see an election where 2 elephants have fought and the grass has grown greener. Quite clearly what had happened was while these 2 elephants were fighting, they dropped a lot of dung. Ayo. That is the position.
Very interesting. Well, let's look at the House of Representatives, because I'm very interested in that one. What's the surprising trend, or is there any surprising trend going on in the lower chamber?
Again, our history books are changing. Again, 2 elephants have fought, the grass did not suffer. Let's look at the House of Representatives and look at what is going on between the APC and PDP and how the minorities were able to make inroads. And if you look at the trends, first of all, we see that in 2015, when this election happened, APC had 212 House of Reps. A day to this election, the APC had 226 members. Now, even though we're still expecting 32 seats, supplementary elections in 32 seats, based on the results from INEC, the APC only now has 161 seats. In other words, even if the APC wins all these 32, it will not get to where it was a day to this election. Look at the PDP. PDP in 2015 had 139 seats. A day to this election, the PDP had 120 seats. PDP now has 105 seats, possibly might be able to get to 120 where it was before this election because there are still 32 seats available. So what we see is at the House of Reps, the APC significantly lost more than the PDP, but those that gained in both the upper house and the lower house was the grass. 2 elephants fought, and yet in Nigeria, the grass became greener. How did the APC lose so much seats in the House of Reps? If we focus on that table by the left, we see the main challenge comes from 2 zones, the Northeast and the Northwest. In 2015, the APC, when this election happened, had 39 House of Reps members in the Northeast. A day to this election, the APC had 37 members from the Northeast. Now, the APC only has 22 members. In the Northwest as well, 87 House of Reps members came from the Northwest in 2015. When this election happened, 82. Now, just before this election happened, 82 seats. Now, the results from INEC shows the APC currently only has 34 seats.
That's a massive drop.
That's a massive drop. So that is the main challenge. But we've seen gains. We've seen the APC get more seats in the South-South, and we've seen that growth, especially across the different blocks, the different voting blocks in the South-South. So clearly, the APC is becoming more of a Southern party. The PDP is becoming more, based on these results, of a Northern party. And the minorities, while the APC and PDP are taking positions, the minority are coming in and the grass is looking greener for them.
Which brings me to the next question. What impact or how much impact will these minority parties have at the National Assembly this time around?
Significant impact. What it means clearly is that it's going to be the most noisy House of Assembly, National Assembly is going to be the most noisy.
Vocal.
Most vocal. There's going to be a lot of horse trading. There's going to be a lot of blaming. And it will take a lot of maneuvering for the president to be able to get assent to his bills. So in other words, the president's task has only just begun, especially if you look at the concerns over what will happen in the governorship election and if people will turn out to vote.
Which also calls the question, should we expect a higher turnout for the governorship and the state assembly elections? What are your thoughts on that?
So it really depends on which states you look at. There are going to be 28 elections, state governorship elections in the states, not 36, 28 elections in the states. But what we know is that there are some states that people and the citizens are focusing on. One state is Lagos. And if we take a look at the trends that have happened in Lagos, it's a bit of good and bad news. The good news is, okay, let's start with the bad news. Let's start with the bad news. The bad news is, if we look at that left table, we see for the second consecutive time, turnout is declining. In 2015, during the presidential election, 29 million people cast their votes. That was in 2015. In 2019, that dropped to 28.6 million. In this presidential election, only 25 million people. The challenge is approximately 25 million people cast their ballot in a country where you have 100+ million adults. In other words, only 1 in 4 eligible Nigerians cast their vote. So the minorities, the minorities had determined who became president. That is the bad news. But for Lagos, there's some good news. What we see is, right from 2007, in the presidential election, 1.2 million people voted in the presidential election. We saw a higher voter turnout for the governorship, 1.4 million. In 2011, 2 million people voted during the presidential election. Similar numbers voted during the governorship, 1.9. In 2015, similar numbers, 1.5 million, 1.5 million for the presidential and governorship. In 2019, there was a shock. Even though 1.1 million people voted in the presidential election, less than 1 million people determined who became the governor of Lagos State, a state that is the equivalent of an African country. Less than 1 million people brought Babajide Sanwo-Olu to office. In this election, 1.3 million people voted in the presidential election. Based on these trends, we're expecting between 1 million and 1.2 million people to determine who becomes the next governor of Lagos. So what we've seen is the trends of voter turnout depends on the interest of the voters within the state. This is Lagos. We've seen some states where the voter turnout at the governorship level continually is significantly worse than the presidential election, which is voters turn out less during the governorship election. They turn out more during the presidential and turn out less during the governorship for some other states. But for Lagos, which is where a lot of people have their eye on for this Saturday, what we've seen is a mixed bag. Sometimes people turn out more during the governorship election, sometimes people turn out less. But what we understand is significantly less people are determining who leads the state. Lagos State Ayo has more than 10 million eligible adults, people that are over the age of 18, more than 10 million. Yes, yet only 1 in 10 people come out to vote. You understand what I mean?
It's really interesting. It's really interesting, but definitely, I'm sure we'll definitely keep our eyes on it, because I'm really looking forward to it, because a whole lot of talk going on social media, of course, for different parties and candidates. But well, we hope for the best.
And trust, in the next 3, 4, 5 days, we'll be doing all the analysis, all the permutations, all the combinations about which of the 20 local governments in Lagos State, and indeed across all the other 774 local governments in Nigeria, where the elections will be holding, 28 states. We'll be doing all the thorough analysis and be looking at history. And will history repeat itself in some instances? We'll find out.
We'll definitely find out. Thank you so
Again,
much.
never forget, 2 elephants fought this time around in our National Assembly elections, yet
the grass is greener. Thank you so much, Babajide Ogusawo, our Channels Television's data analyst there, taking a look at the 10th National Assembly. Let's move on. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, is asking the federal government through the National Broadcasting Commission, that's the NBC, to withdraw the threat to revoke the licenses of broadcast stations and then shut them down over their coverage of elections and post-election matters. According to SERAP, the NBC had last week threatened to revoke the licenses of broadcast stations and shut them down if they continue to allow what they term unpatriotic individuals on their platforms to make utterances that are subversive and inciting post-2023 presidential election. In a letter by the rights group, it explains that the threat by the NBC, if not immediately withdrawn, would limit freedom of expression and the ability of broadcast stations to cover important issues around the 2023 general elections. The group further notes that threatening to shut down and revoke the licenses of broadcast stations for carrying out their duties is incompatible with Nigeria's constitutional and international human rights obligations. Amid the lingering scarcity of new Naira notes as a result of the recent currency redesign policy of the CBN, that's the Central Bank of Nigeria, and its attendant hardships on citizens, the Arewa Consultative Forum has faulted President Muhammadu Buhari for disobeying the Supreme Court judgment ordering the recirculation of the old Naira notes till December 31st this year. The Northern Group describes the president's action as a damage to his credentials as a Democrat and a stickler for the rule of law. In a statement by Secretary General Murtala Aliyu on Sunday, the ACF lamented that the Naira redesign policy has led to runaway inflation in food and other commodities. Part of the statement reads, Monday, the 13th of March 2023, marks the 10th day when the Supreme Court of Nigeria ruled that CBN's Naira redesign policy is unlawful and its implementation should stop. 10 days is long enough time for the government to find its way towards complying with a court order which import is central to the achievement of peace, order and good governance in the country. Well, almost 2 weeks after the Supreme Court ruling, huge crowds and long queues continue to form around bank offices and at ATM points across the country as people struggle to get the new cash, which have remained extremely scarce. Some residents of communities in Jigawa and Kano states have been counting their losses following the fire that ravaged their property recently. In 3 villages in Kiawa local government area in Jigawa state, the fire consumed houses, livestock, farm produce and other valuables. A similar incident happened in Rimi Market in Kano State, where 21 shops were burnt. Our correspondent Sadiq Ilyasu tells us more.
Malamawar Dongoli, Karangi and Kwalele villages raised to fire in Kiawa local government area of Jigawa State, northwest Nigeria. Eyewitnesses say the fire began as a result of a wind, which blew a traditional cooking stove on a thatched house.
I didn't know when the fire started. We tried to put it out, but we couldn't. We just have to save our children. We lost our homes, foods, animals, and so on.
Also in Kano State, a part of Rimi Market, which houses different trades, raised. This is Rimi Market in Kano State, northwest Nigeria. 3 days ago, about 21 shops were burnt down as a result of a fire outbreak. Many furniture like this one got burnt down, and they are worth millions of naira.
The fire began around 1 a.m. on Thursday. I have 3 shops here, and all of them got burned. I lost about 17 to 20 million naira.
Respite arrives as the Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and the State Deputy Governor visit the locations in Jigawa.
We have already sent a team. Immediately, the Deputy Governor here standing alerted us, alerted the Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, who also informed the President of this sad event. Assessment was done, and based on this assessment, I ensured that all these materials are here. But on getting here, I needed to see for myself to ascertain and verify what I've been told. The situation is terrible. More than half of the town, you have gone around with us to see, has totally been destroyed. People have lost their houses, their belongings, and everything you can think of. This is a very, very, very sad thing. We will not wish anybody to see anything like this.
The DG Nema is here with us. He has brought a lot of relief to these people, including food, including clothing, including beddings, including mattresses, roofing sheets, ceilings, cement, and every other thing that will assist these people. All the essential that they needed, he has brought them here. So, and I think we have nothing to say than to thank the DG NEMA for this kind of support.
Fire outbreaks are becoming a common occurrence in markets across the country, and with inadequate emergency responses, victims record huge losses. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
Over now to Yobe State, where Governor Mai Mala Buni has flagged off the reconstruction of a 34-kilometer Jajere-Danchua road in the state at a cost of 5.2 billion naira. Flagging off the project at Jajere community in Fune local government area, Governor Mai Mala Buni explained the project would be completed in 18 months.
This is a 34-kilometer Danchua-Jajere road in Yobe State that had been unmotorable in the last 2 decades without any attempt by previous governments to fix it, despite its economic potential. The residents in their hundreds jubilate to welcome Governor Mai Mala Buni, his deputy, amongst other dignitaries, to flag off its reconstruction. The project coordinator gives an update on the challenge faced by the residents and motorists plying the road.
Motorists ply the road with stress all year round due to potholes, edge depression, and gullies, further compounded by seasonal flooding, taking a toll on the transportation system during the rainy season, causing delays and havoc on the road, making travelers to waste more than 3 hours on a distance of 34 kilometers. This further attests to His Excellency Mai Mala Buni's wisdom, foresight, and commitment at restoring and improving of critical service delivery infrastructure for betterment of the citizenry.
Governor Mai Mala Buni, while flagging off the reconstruction of the road, which was neglected in the last 2 decades, says the project will be constructed at the cost of 5.2 billion naira, with a completion period of 1.5 years.
No community in Yobe State has your word that has waited for too long to see you coming. And because of this, we have come by way to you people of Jajere, Kolere, Koelbila, and all the other communities in this environment. Furthermore, like many viable communities of Yobe State, Danchua, Jajere, Kolere, etc., constitute an area with high agricultural potentials.
I'm sure you will agree with me that the road we are here to witness the commencement of its construction when completed will unveil and harness rich agricultural, livestock and other potentials that abound in this area and as well improve socio-economic life in these communities. This project was awarded at the cost of 5,200,032,211 naira 2 kobo, and is expected to be completed within 18 months.
The governor also directed the State Ministry of Works to ensure all bridges and roads washed away by flooding during the last rainy season be reconstructed with immediate effect.
Protests have escalated on the streets of Tel Aviv in Israel in what organizers believe is the biggest in the history of the country, owing to Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to reform the judiciary. According to critics of the government, the reform will increase corruption and hurt the democratic process in Israel.
Thousands of Israelis demonstrating in Tel Aviv on Saturday, March 11th for protests now in their 10th week against plans by the hard-right government to curb the Supreme Court's powers, which critics see as a threat to judicial independence. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who says his aim is to balance out branches of government, wields a parliamentary majority along with his religious nationalist coalition allies. Protesters say the changes will threaten democratic checks and balances on ministers by the courts and accuse Mr. Netanyahu of trying to escape a legal case against him.
I'm here to demonstrate and to sound my voice against the dictatorship that they establish here in the name of the so-called law, judicial reform. It's not a judicial reform. It's a revolution that's making Israel go to full dictatorship. And I want Israel to stay a democracy for my kids, for my grandson that will be here, because Israel is a democracy country, and it must stay as one.
I am here to protest against the reform in the law and to protest against our Prime Minister, that we call him Crime Minister. He is becoming a dictator, and we don't want dictatorship, we want democracy back.
Mr. Netanyahu is on trial on corruption charges, which he denies. The parliament passed the first reading of the first bill of the government's proposed judicial reforms by a vote of 63 for and 47 against after midnight on February the 21st. The government says the reforms are designed to end overreach into politics by an unrepresentative Supreme Court, but critics say Mr. Netanyahu is seeking legal changes that will hurt Israelis' democratic checks and balances, foster corruption, and bring diplomatic isolation.
Time now for sports news. Kwara Falcons Basketball Club this evening lost their opening game against Rwanda Energy Group at the ongoing Basketball Africa League 64 to 48 points in Dakar, Senegal. The Rwanda basketball team dominated the first quarter 16 to 9. The second quarter went to the Nigeria side 20 points to 15. The third quarter of the game was won by Rwanda Energy Group 24 to 9. While the fourth and final quarter was a tight one between both teams, with Kwara Falcons claiming victory 11 to 9. Kwara Falcons will return to action on Tuesday when they face Mali's Stade Malien. Arsenal powered 5 points clear at the top of the English Premier League with a stylish 3-0 win at Fulham earlier today. Mikel Arteta's side had seen second-place Manchester City close the gap with victory at Crystal Palace on Saturday, while the Gunners responded with the kind of composed display that has been the hallmark of their unexpected title charge. It was Arsenal's 11th victory from 14 away league games this season, underlining the durability and maturity that has them in position to win the title for the first time since Arsene Wenger's Invincibles in 2004. Manchester United midfielder Casemiro, with a Brazilian, was sent off in the Red Devils' 0-0 draw against struggling Southampton at Old Trafford. West Ham lifted themselves out of the relegation zone with a draw against Aston Villa after being awarded a soft penalty for Said Berama's equaliser. And the main news again. Gunmen have attacked Ungwan Wakili village in Zangon Kataf, Kaduna State, killing at least 17 persons and leaving 3 others injured. The Zangon Kataf Local Administration Council has imposed a 24-hour curfew in the area, while the police has vowed to arrest the perpetrators. Also today, we told you that the Arawa Consultative Forum accused President Muhammadu Buhari of disobedience to the ruling of the Supreme Court on the old Naira notes. The Northern Social Political Group warned that the president's action is capable of damaging the president's credentials as a Democrat and a stickler for the rule of law. And that's the news at 10. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. From all of us here, it's good night and stay safe.